So without further ado, so we made this presentation late last year when there was a lot of talk about the Californian forest fires. So since the beginning of 2020, essentially, there were a lot of forest fires in the US in general, but particularly in the state of California. The largest one, which had recently started, was started 80 miles from LA and started as a result of a gender reveal party. You guys probably remember that. It gave us quite the reputation. And then at that time, that burned through.
Sorry, it started what? What did you say?
It started 80 miles from Los Angeles. And it started because of a gender reveal party, like, you know, I think it was like fireworks. They tried to do fireworks, and then like it would explode in blue or pink depending on the gender. And then instead it exploded in red and set the entire forest on fire, which happens. But it had burned nearly 50,000 acres of land, and since then I believe it's burned a lot more, spreading not only through California but also surrounding states like Arizona and Oregon. And then there was a quote by the Oregon governess, Kate Brown, who said that this was a once-in-a-lifetime, or once-in-a-generation, event that may lead to the greatest loss of human life and property due to wildfire in our state's history. So this was a very major event, which did a lot of damage to the wildlife and just people's homes in general. As you can see here are a few pictures. The entire mountaintop was red. These fires burned through a lot of the state. And were a huge loss of wilderness, unfortunately.
Did they, which day, like which month did they start, or like?
Well, California is prone to forest fires, but I believe that these started as early as January 2020, and then just progressively escalated. There's usually a time of the year, every year, that you hear a lot about California forest fighting, or forest firefighting. This was just a particularly large incident which spurred a mass debate about it. But I'd say like early January.
Because like some smaller fires might be like casual, like it's a normal.
Yeah, in California in general, the state is very prone to fires, and Petrina will talk about that in a sec.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes. So what causes also first where? So this whole like region is quite prone to fires, and if you go further up, like in Canada, like I live around here, and we have all of these fires as well. Like it goes all the way up. And when big fires, such as the California fires happen every summer, the smoke from the fires travels all the way up. So then every summer in Calgary, where I'm from, like here, we'll get these huge notices about the smoke and how we all have to stay inside and don't go out because it's going to bother your lungs. So this definitely is like an international issue because the smoke spreads and it's really, really bad for not only the environment and the animals, but also for humans. And I think the California fires was probably one of the worst, like this recent one was probably one of the worst ones we've had, like air pollution wise. So yeah, like you couldn't even see like the blue sky, like it was like gray. So that, yeah, and it's kind of crazy to think because they're so far away how much impact it has on other countries as well. But yes, how did these happen? Why did these happen? So first cause is climate change. So the lack of rainfall and increasingly warm temperatures in the summer dries out the vegetation, and this causes the trees and the bark to droop, and it's the perfect material for kindling, or like kindling is the small branches you put on the fire in the beginning that are really, really easy to light on fire, and they're perfect for starting fires because they're so easy to light. And this has extended the fire season by at least 75 days since the 1970s. So the fire season is essentially just a period of time when all the trees are prone to catching on fire. And during these times, because this is so prone to happen, and unnatural fires are so prone to happen, governments in Canada and US have put in fire bans or fire laws where you're not allowed to start recreational fires or have fireworks, these types of things. High winds, which will cause fire tornadoes. So just imagine like a tornado, but instead of like a tornado of wind, like a tornado of fire. Yes.
Oh,
3 is poorly maintained electrical infrastructure. So in the forests, in California forests, you'll have these really suspicious poles and like electric lines, and they're very easy to fall over and can start a fire quite easily. And these trees are easily ignited by fireworks, cigarette butts, etc. 4 is fire suppression. So in the early 20th century, a lot of people in Canada, US thought that the best thing to do to help these fires was to suppress them as much as possible. So decades of fire suppression has caused an unnatural buildup of vegetation or fuel in ecosystems, which has caused more severe fires in the future, because what we understand now is that a lot of fires are actually supposed to happen naturally. So for example, for this specific pine, so in the lodgepole pine, eucalyptus, and banksia trees, they have these pine cones which are covered in this waxy resin, and the seeds are inside the pine cone. So it needs a fire to melt the resin or the waxy coat on the outside in order to actually plant seeds and grow. So it needs fires in order to regenerate for the next generations. So when things like this are suppressed, not only are you building up all of this fuel for a massive fire in the future, but you're also killing off more tree lines, because these types of trees actually need these natural fires to further generate. There are also species like shrubs and bushes that they need the chemical from the smoke that burns in natural fires in order to have the same thing, for the seeds to fall into the ground and to grow. So. Ecological implications. So the California forest fires have been steadily increasing in number and severity in recent decades, resulting in a loss of life and many ramifications for the environment. As we all know, the ecosystem and all of its connections are really, really fragile. And if one species is wiped out, this creates a chain effect through the entire web of the food web. So it also leads to weaker tree regeneration, soil erosion, charred soil, and landslides, because the trees have very strong roots and the roots hold together the soil. So when the trees burn down, the soil is now all loose, and it will erode, go into the ocean, cause landslides, go into the rivers, etc. Decreased water quality, also because the soil and stuff can go into the rivers. Decreased air quality because of the smoke, worsens climate change, increases the duration of wildfire season, and animal habitat and nutrition destruction.
Right, so in the last slide we talked about how climate change and these fire seasons were kind of in a feedback loop, where climate change, or the worsening of climate change, extends the fire season, which then worsens climate change, which worsens the fire season, and because of that, there's been a genuine trend, or general trend to increase the amount of acres burned during the wildfire season in California. So as you can see, this doesn't go up to 2021, but there's been a general increase in the amount, with a couple of low years and high years, in the amount of acres burned, to the point that the California government and several surrounding states have started to take interest in preventing these fires, and they're starting to take a lot of laws and policies around this issue, which we'll discuss now.
Yes, so the steps being taken is, like Raj said, in light of the statistics that were shown, the California government is strongly encouraging the residents to take up certain habits, such as reporting unattended fires, extinguishing fire pits and campfires, don't throw lit cigarettes out of your car, use caution when using flammable liquids, only use fireworks in clear areas, and like I said earlier, governments are also taking fire bans into precaution, so they're banning fireworks certain times of the year, they're banning recreational fires, barbecues, this kind of thing, simply because it's so easy to cause a fire. Like, you wouldn't think a gender reveal party could cause a fire like that, but it can. So the government has been taking even more steps in order to ensure that fires don't happen in this sense again. Furthermore, the Californian government has dedicated a significantly larger part of their annual budget to restoring burnt land and hope to be treating over 1 million acres per year by 2025, because they recognize that this is a huge part of, in California at least, and also in that whole area, tourism, and also like recreational hiking, biking, all this stuff is a huge economic income for a lot of places and a lot of people. So environmentally, this is a really important thing that they need to invest in to restore, but also economically, they're losing a lot of money through these wildfires, so they need to also reinvest back into that. California has also announced plans to lower their carbon emissions and improve building and design codes in fire hazardous regions. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Great. So lastly, here are a couple of possible solutions that California and other states are taking to kind of think outside of the box. So the first one is prescribed fires. It's part of the fire grower program, and this is essentially when California, or I guess the state, intentionally burns certain strips of land to prevent the fire from spreading over. So you can imagine that if you have a vast expanse of forest and a lot of it is burning, you can burn down an entire section of the forest to prevent the fire from making this jump between like two sections of the forest. So you could think of it kind of like a moat, in the sense that it creates a gap between the part that's currently burning and the part that's healthy, to ensure that the entire forest isn't burnt down. This is also kind of mechanically thinning the forest. They sometimes chop down trees in certain areas that have a lot of trees to make sure that the fire doesn't spread as easily. It's another way of ensuring that they can still keep as much biodiversity up, all while maintaining the fire to where it currently is. Not to mention that they're also working on taking land that has currently been burnt or is burnt to the ground and restoring it. So this involves, clearing away ashes, reintroducing animals, planting seeds, etc. And they hope to, I think, treat 1 million acres this way by 2025, which means that you can allow fires to happen a little more, knowing that land will be restored a little faster. And then lastly, the California Fire is starting to fund 35 priority fire management projects on some 90,000 acres. So during the next 5 years, the department will also spend $1 billion from the state's cap and trade climate fund. So that will go for restoration, reforestation, fuel reduction, prescribed fire, biomass utilization, and new research. The goal is to make forests more resilient to continue climate change and wildfire. So as you can see, this kind of fits into California as a state putting more money of its budget into funding these off, but I think that especially with the worsening of climate change and it's starting to have an impact on California's stability as a state, it's given it a lot more importance and has created a lot more projects and initiatives to kind of deal with the issue. And yep, that's it.